How do you manage time to do all this? Like the production, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I don't know is the answer to that question. It's just putting out fires at the moment. Like do this, do that, do that. um, Honestly, a big thing was in so like I moved from New York to London. I'm now uh, I moved back to the UK, and I'm commuting a lot more than I was in New York. I was working from home a lot
Wow.
more. I could get to the office a little bit quicker, but now I'm commuting quite far, which is that really kills production time. But I'm just waiting. Like I've got an apartment at the end of January, so I'm just waiting till there, and then I'm like 10 minutes away from the office. So life will be good once again. Um,
That's exciting.
but yeah, it's busy. But anyway, guys, welcome to number 32, and I think this is going to be our last podcast for, or would you say clubcast? I don't know if I don't know if that's a word. There, did I just make something up? This is our last podcast for the year, I think. Number 32, and we thought since it's going to be the last one of the year, we'll end it the way that we started ArchiTech Network and the way we started the year with our first ever talk, which was on blockchain for architects. So I thought, let's run it back for the last one this year. And today I invited Mayur to join us. I know you were a an early ArchiTech clubhouse. So you were like a staple in our crowd at one point. So it's good to have you back and have you on as a guest. So thank you so much for joining. I know
It's an honor.
you've just come off your own podcast, so appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity. And I really appreciate the amount of impact and the community you're building here. It's very difficult and uh, it's very resourceful and knowledgeable. The talks you're having, it's what we need in the education and the profession.
That's awesome. Always awesome to hear. That's why we're doing it. And yeah, and thank you for joining because it wouldn't be a network without other people. It'd just be me chatting to myself, which is just a crazy person. So um, maybe just to introduce the crowd a little bit to yourself. I've got a little bit of a spiel for you. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But so you are a AEC technology activist, which I did like from your profile. Obviously big in the architect space. You're currently working at Perkins and Will, as in you studied architecture in India and Chicago, and you are currently based in Chicago, right? Um,
Yeah.
you're also a fellow YouTuber with the YouTube channel Engineering Architecture. So we're both in the ArchiTech names, which is cool. And you've kind of got a bit of a background as that you're an engineer turned architect, right? And I've seen you spend some time in, the academic world, doing a bit of teaching and that kind of stuff. And then you're obviously practicing yourself at Perkins and Will. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for joining, man. I think it was I think one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you for this talk is because I see you posting all the time about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and more recently Archi DAOs, which I would love to learn about. I have no idea what it is. I deliberately haven't looked it up, so we could just I could ask stupid questions about it, so other people can learn a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I missed anything out there. You're also like, aren't you Randy Deutsch's one of Randy Deutsch's students?
Yeah, I studied at University of Illinois, and he
Right.
was my professor, and we had a good conversations on the technological side. So we resonate a lot of thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah. So just before we delve into the depths of blockchain, which which is a broad topic at this point since we last spoke about it. There's one thing I definitely had to ask you about. Reading your LinkedIn page, it said that you are a bit of a motorbike dude, and you drove across the Himalayas on some of the highest roads that you can drive. And the reason why I'm asking is like that is a bucket list trip for me. So I had to ask you before we delve into blockchain. we can briefly talk about you driving across the Himalayas. How did that come about? Are you a bit of a biker?
Yeah, like I did that motorbiking trip. It's a Leh Ladakh trip, motorbiking trip from Manali,
Mm.
and like it was 7 days, and every day there is a different nature. And I had like couple of not yeah, late night. So there was, we were driving and there was no lights on the street, and there were rocks falling at the top, and there was one big rock which fell just in front of my bike. So there were some near death experiences, but like that totally changed the way I perceived life, and I started appreciating small things a lot more. And that's one of the things I like about travel, that you think, you think about things differently after your trip if it's very like adventurous and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Was that in Nepal, or you were kind of going from Nepal to India, or?
Yeah, so it's in northern India, and it's within India, like it's in a state called Himachal Pradesh. So it's a cross trip from Himachal to Kashmir, and
Oh
like
wow,
few of the places along the way are near China border. So yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I've always wanted to do that in Nepal. Um, but yeah, I can drive a bike really badly, but yeah, I got to get better so I can do it. Next up, you have to do the Dakar Rally. That should be your next challenge, eh?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm just
so
waiting.
do you still drive in like Chicago and that?
No, like I'm more kind of a motorbiker, so, and currently I use public transportation more, so
Yeah,
not a car person.
the e-bikes. You
Yeah.
can try. Cool. So maybe to introduce, get onto the topic of blockchain, which I appreciate is like a super broad topic. I mean, we've had a couple specific talks. We've had two talks now on NFTs, and the term blockchain is becoming bigger and bigger. We'll talk. I'm sure we'll touch on cryptocurrencies and NFTs and all these other kind of things. It's also now hard to talk about blockchain without mentioning the metaverse as well. But maybe to start off, how did you kind of get into the world of blockchain, and like what was it that attracted you to it?
Yeah, I think that's a quite interesting story in itself. So, like a lot of people who transition into Web3, listening to a lot of NFT Clubhouse discussions. So, I was in a talk organized by Daniel Bolojan, and there was one person from Chicago who was talking about collaboration with Zaha Hadid and building assets on Liverland and tokenizing those things. So that got me hooked. And NFT, I was listening to those conversations, but it didn't sell me at that point. This is like early this year and like last October, November area. And then I started, okay, what are people doing in AEC in general for blockchain? So I attended a conference called Blockchain for Construction, organized by Theodonas and people from UCL. And then I saw a really, really cool project development by researchers at ETH and led by Daniel Hall, where they had no one S1. So it's a decentralized autonomous space, which is totally governed by the people, operated by the people. And that demonstration totally changed the way, like if a machine could be a living thing, like it operates on its own, it's making decisions on its own, like we are giving life to a machine. And I think there is a way bigger picture using blockchain, which is like not currently being realized. And that's where I got deeper into those research, and I started reading research papers. I went to NYC NFT conference, which was like another great level conference which happened recently. And I saw a lot of projects having NFT with physical utilities. And back in those days, I was also having conversation with Theo Dunas, who had like amazing research on blockchain for BIM, blockchain for AEC, where there are grasshopper workflows for getting your BIM object into IPFS and doing minting directly using that workflow. And that I thought like there is a big need of architecture DAO where like a lot of people, not only we can remove the barrier to get into this metaverse and blockchain space, but also like giving them learning resources, giving them platform and clients to implement that project. I think it's a big opportunity for us to shine in this space.
Yeah, I think it's still one that's like so broad and so you know, I feel like every month there's something new, a new term or new like application for it. But yeah, as always, I feel the AEC industry was a little bit behind on like the blockchain thing until NFTs come about, and then I had like a lot of colleagues getting really excited about NFTs, and that was like the gateway drug into blockchain and cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. But I think it's still important to like kind of continue these discussions. And even at this point, I'm absolutely no expert in it at all. In fact, like I've given a couple talks in the office on blockchain, just very broad what ifs and a little trying to explain exactly what blockchain is and like what are NFTs and cryptocurrencies and how they might be related to architecture and stuff like that. But by doing it, I get like, a few people will come up to me with like another little snippet of information. I'm like, oh man, that's super interesting. Oh, I didn't look at it from that way. So I thought that was kind of the goal of today. And also, we'll open it up to the audience like pretty early on. Like, come on if you are or have something in the blockchain space that you're interested in or something to share. Raise your hand, and we'll bring more people up. But what is it right now that's kind of interesting you in the space of blockchain? I mean, of course, for me, I got I heard of blockchain through Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency craze. I remember in my housemates in early, what year was that? It was early 2017, I want to say, had invested in Bitcoin, and they were like, "Oh man, it was around the time when it was like getting to like $1,000 a Bitcoin." They were like, "Man, this is crazy! It's gonna be $1,000," and I was like, "What is this thing?" They were like, "Ah, don't worry, it's just like it's going crazy right now, but it won't." They were just like kind of brushing it off, even though they'd invested in it. And then I think it was in 2017. I think it was the Thanksgiving hype in America. I was in America at the time, and I was
Mhm.
having a stay-at-home a friendsgiving because I was just with other expats, and then everyone was like trying to buy Bitcoin around the table, like literally before it, and that was like, I was like, I really should look into this thing more. And so for me, it was like, cryptocurrencies. I was kind of interested in what is cryptocurrencies and how could they be used in architecture. And then I think this year we've had NFTs and that kind of the whole NFT craze. What is kind of interesting you the most right now, specifically for the AEC space? I know you've been talking about DAOs for a little bit. So if we want, we can jump into that. But yeah, what interests you the most right now? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, like ultimately, like I'm a engineer by heart. So like whenever there are like good algorithms and protocols that are solving a problem, that excites me the most. So first, my first exploration in blockchain was through DAO, like decentralized autonomous organization, and it addresses a lot of like problems or areas of improvement in current organizational hierarchy, or possible like initiatives driven or community driven along with incentives approach we could definitely have to grow like this global architectural network uh, for anything. But for example, like I got really excited by decentralized finance at one point, and there is like DeFi 2.0 and currently being DeFi 3.0. And being an international student myself, like I know the pain points. If I want to send money from like US to India, like you gotta wait. Yeah, there is like different like current problems in centralized finance, and the way decentralized was addressing it. And not only you get like more higher interest, but you could stake, you can lend, and it's not like buying just share of Bitcoin like gets into the blockchain, but like once you get into your decentralized wallet, there is a whole another spectrum of things you could do, which is not possible apart from like there's DeFi 2.0 where you could do bonding and then you can earn interest at a lower rate. Like that. Sorry for digressing on that part, but I was thinking when
It's
I
all
was
good.
thinking about this talk. Yeah, what if Archi Tech Network had a social token? So, like Web 3.0, like data ownership and community driven, like are the core focus. So, let's say Oli Faisal, and you want to take this to the next level, and you require funding. You could do either crowdfunding, you can do uh, VC funding. But if you do like let's say community tokens, the community believes in this network, and if they know like this is gonna go 100x in next year and they want to really support you, like if you issue tokens, not only you benefit from those resources but the community also get rewards in by trusting in this project, believing in this project, and like it's a like win-win situation. That's why I like
Right,
DAO.
like you're essentially talking like crowdfunding with equity, which is basically in a blockchain-based system.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you said that because that to me was always the thing I got really excited about blockchain. I thought, is this a way to democratize architecture? So, could we go from building, by a few very rich people for, many rich people to, uh, building by many people for the people kind of thing, and use it as a way for crowdfunding projects or from small to large ones. Um, but people, never heard people get too excited about that. And then, I think the NFT thing came around, and everyone was like, we could NFT renders or diagrams or like assets, or a lot of friends were creating like grasshopper looking NFTs and things like that, which is super exciting, and I think it's also a great uh, it's a you can see it's a really low hanging fruit for the architecture world in terms of blockchain. But yeah, I always thought like this crowdfunding aspect or like this community driven um, funding could be a really interesting way, when you connect it with housing, for example. I always thought
Hmm.
that was going to be like the big thing. But and of course, blockchain is not the silver bullet in that example. There's still like a lot of the legal side of doing it, and crowdfunding building and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely one that seems super interesting. But I still feel it's still early stages, right?
Yeah, there are like two projects I find very interesting, which I'd like to share. So there is a project I came across called Root Finance, where let's say you live in an apartment and you're paying rent. Ultimately, it builds a pool in the smart contract where you are staking in the equity of that rented apartment. So let's say you live for 1 or 2 years and you go back, you get some stake back into it. So those kind of models where like I haven't
Right.
seen that before.
Well, I
And
mean, I guess they kind of exist. I know, like in the office, I think that's part of one of our new ventures called Neighbor, where we're building like um, it's kind of a new way of building homes, and over time you can kind of accrue equity whilst you're renting at the same time. And I think it exists. I think there's also places in the US kind of where it exists. For example, like what is it called in the US? It's what is it when you kind of you can buy an apartment, and you're actually buying like just shares of the building. Damn it, it's completely
like cooperative
co-
or
yeah, like a co-op, which is like exists, but it's just not on a blockchain based system. But you could see how that could be translated onto a blockchain based system, and maybe it would be like a rise in this revival of this kind of way of buying apartments or homes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And have you heard about crypto barista?
Crypto barista, like a coffee maker barista.
Yeah, like so that's an
No,
interesting project.
I'll look it
So
up.
they minted like images of barista, and they raised the treasury for the coffee chain using those NFT, and then they made a DAO. So NFT holder gets perks in IRL of going to the cafe, and long term the community decides how to expand this coffee chain. What's the next location? What are the things they
Oh,
want to develop? So we
that's
got
super
partnership
interesting.
with them. Yeah. So ArchiDAO like got a partnership with them, and they have like the first location in Manhattan, New York.
Hmm.
And what we are like proposing is not only like design the interior, but also new business models, how a Web3 integrated or a crypto friendly space looks like. So there are currently like not opportunities which have been leveraged. Let's say people are waiting a coffee queue, and you could have interfaces or screen where you could implement wait to earn model, where you could airdrop tokens in the wallet for their attention and reward communities, or have spaces where people are doing metaverse asset building and one click interface where they could visualize it in Decentraland or other metaverses. So like creating those communities like Web3, we're connecting all this. I think there are a lot of opportunities for physical digital bridge where like we have a lot of value.
That's super interesting. So essentially, to simplify, they are a bunch of people that have crowdfunded uh, crowdfunded enough money to create their own coffee shops or chain of coffee shops by selling these little NFTs to begin with of these little barista characters, right? And then
Correct.
and then whoever's invested invested in it has some kind of say in the business decisions for the coffee shops, right?
Yeah. That's where the governance and DAO
Yeah,
gets very interesting.
that's super interesting. That would be really interesting to see if it works because I like the idea on paper, but that's just to put my slightly more cynical kind of hat on. Like, how would that actually, would that be a good thing or would that be a bad thing? And like, how does the business model work out with that? But you know, that will come. But that seems really interesting. We have they started to like create the coffee shop at this point? Do you know?
Yeah. So like I know the founders and we had conversations. So Uh, their timeline is like they're gonna get the location by January, February, and in June, July they plan to start their first location in Manhattan. But they have like got a really good, decent amount of fundraising already through the NFT. So, and they have like core background in coffee, like they have their own coffee shops. So even the liability and like the business know-how, like it's not a bunch of random people doing this. It's people who knows the industry and knows the how about it. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it's definitely an idea that I'm looking to experiment with myself. We're designing something to try and bring to Burning Man this year, and one of the ways that we're going to try and raise money is by creating uh, NFTs to raise money to pay to build it, essentially pay for the materials and stuff like that. So I think this is a really interesting space. This coffee shop thing, I'm a little distracted now because I'm kind of flicking through it. It's a really interesting business model, but you could totally see how that would translate to building a community of people to build homes and architecture or office space, anything, which would be really, like it would be really interesting to see the kind of environment and cities and buildings that would create. Again, like that would be like having like 100 or potentially thousands of clients that have a say of whether they do or don't like something. But then again, because it's kind of like spread out, maybe it would be kind of a better way of like doing business.
Yeah, and I could literally see like a lot of interesting developments in like architecture space and tech space. For example, let's say a bunch of architect community people think, okay, we should develop an open source Grasshopper plugin, but they don't have time and resources. Like
Mm,
they could do like this NFT based like ownership where like there might be small firms or big firms who have like some uh, who want to contribute. They can buy the NFT and they can control the direction of open source development, but also people who are passionate to develop it are getting rewards based on this development.
Hmm.
And
So
also data ownership, like I have seen very interesting model where I was talking to Ryan Cameron the other day. So you could have like a sensors which you can have it in the space which monitors air pollution, IoT data, and it anonymizes it and it gives you reward tokens. So you could have like another business model where you're getting some operational rewards in the long run.
right, right. And I've seen some like community things, like, if, for example, to take it back to an architecture example, like if you have a home that's in a community and that your roof is supplying is has got solar panels on it, and you're generating enough to put back into the local grid of energy, then you get some kind of token and stuff back. I'd love to like pick a economist, I guess it would be, his brain on like how to actually model like the economics of whether that works and doesn't work, because that's super interesting. But it's just like, I wonder, is it like does it work out in the real world kind of thing? Obviously, I would love it to, but
Yeah.
um,
It's interesting that you mention it because like currently I can't disclose much, but we are in talk with another DAO who are uh, focused on like community owned and blockchain owned like solar panels or like even electric cars in a
right.
neighborhood level. So we are providing like consultancy, like how a crypto friendly or Web3 first neighborhood looks like.
Yeah, I mean, one question that did pop in that's a bit of a it's a bit of a specific thing, but like in that example, uh, I would like, at what point would it make sense to let's say, in our example of let's for ArchiTech Network, we want to develop a bunch of courses, and or like take ArchiTech Network to the next level, and we're going to create a we want to do kind of a crowdfunding DAO. Would it be a NFT, or would it just be a cryptocurrency? Like, at what point is the differentiation made? I guess it would be an NFT. Um, do you know what I mean? Like, it could
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
cryptocurrency, right? Because and then each coin, like companies do an ICO in order to kind of. I've heard of companies doing an ICO in order to uh, do like a Series A, a Series B. I'm basing this knowledge completely on the TV show Silicon Valley, uh, which is a great TV show if anyone hasn't seen it.
yeah.
But
I love it.
yeah, but yeah, that I mean, maybe it's a bit of like a technicality, but because a lot of people kind of, randomly, we have conversations around the water cooler, so to speak, about uh, blockchain, and I feel like some people who've come into the blockchain space through NFTs, it's like NFT everything. But then I was just kind of taking a step back and be like, wouldn't that just be a kind of a cryptocurrency, but that's backed by something rather than nothing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so actually that's a really good thought. Like I have looked into this space because like for our DAO, like we have like several approaches. So either we can do like NFT DAO, like which
Hmm.
like Crypto Barista, you do NFT to do fundraising for treasury, but also it gives you governance rights based on the
Right.
amount you hold for the future. So that's like a lesser uh, like very straightforward and easy way if you don't want to deal with the tokenomics of like for your DAO. And but if the thing with NFT is like people flip and want to just make quick money, so there is
Right.
another interesting protocol called Hyper Vibes protocol. So let's say if you have an NFT, you could embed your tokens inside that NFT and package it. So, and you could decide a rule that, okay, I want to have minimum 30 days NFT and like ArchiDAO, like ArchiTech tokens embedded in it. So people minimum stake for like 30 days. So it builds the
Hmm.
treasury. So you could write those kind of like code in that smart contract.
The other thing is, of course, when you're saying you can raise money for NFTs, we're not necessarily talking about selling a little GIF of some pixelized character, right? I think just for in case anyone in nuance is kind of a little bit newer to this space, an NFT doesn't like it can just be a contract in a way, right? It's not necessarily selling a little JPEG. Although in some of the examples that you're saying, right, they are actually like the barista thing. There is little like crypto baristas kind of looking things, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and you could have like model where, let's say, if 10 people, there are 10 attendants for ArchiTech network meetups. There is like, okay, free NFT been given to them, like for their attendance. You appreciate like the community building and
Mm-hmm.
like regular attendance. If you're organizing workshop, that NFT could become like a token, an access to that workshop for free, or like that, like NFT
Right.
in content itself is like, I'm lesser interested. More interested in the metadata, which gives you access to whole another spectrum. Like you could have architect avatars of NFT where different level of community members have different metadata and strength attributes, which gives them different governance rights or something.
Oh, I see. That's super interesting. I never really considered that side of it. Um, Maybe just because I know these guys have come up to the stage. Amir, do you want to jump in whilst we're in the middle of this? Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I really, really enjoy the talk. Thanks so much for the information,
Cool.
Mayor.
Thanks for joining.
It was amazing, and I'm really fascinated by the idea of the barrister thing. I was just gonna shed some light on some research that I came across recently, and some really interesting projects in NFT. There is this kind of really interesting research by Dark Matter Labs, which is, I think, a kind of research body of Architecture 00. And they've done this research about how the kind of New York High Line could have turned into a kind of a different project in terms of how it was funded. Because, as you know, like almost $7 billion was spent from public money on the kind of infrastructure of the project, whereas like in the area that the High Line was constructed, you could see that the private lands and private value of the kind of neighbor properties appreciated in value by 200%. So, like they were suggesting that how can we kind of leverage smart contracts to fund the whole project using that kind of appreciation price of the neighborhood properties. For example, if someone is gaining 200% on their property because of that infrastructure, why not just spending just a little bit of that percentage to fund the whole project and not fund it from the kind of public money? So that was really interesting in how we can use smart contracts in kind of way we govern our infrastructure and cities, and how we can kind of use it to rethink the value system that we're creating. And there was really interesting suggestions that came up about how we can use this for urban governance. And like you were suggesting, the kind of air pollution thing, that people get tokens if they contribute positively. I was thinking like we as architects, the projects that we design, we get funded. I mean, the whole kind of financial benefit of that project comes from, in UK at least, it comes from like a percentage of the construction cost. Whereas that's not the value that we're adding. Like we're getting like 13% of the whole construction cost, whereas the value that we should be adding is the space that we design, or the kind of quality of the space that deals with the mental health of the inhabitants of that space. So why not kind of creating a smart contract, for example, which could, on the other end, could have NHS, National Health Service, that if we are, I mean, this is super complicated, but that's the whole point of smart contracts. If you can code something as complex, it's just with that's only possible with smart contracts, I think. You make a contract saying, if I'm saving, I don't know, whatever number of lives, because I'm, building really, health friendly buildings that, help the residents to enhance their kind of mental health and stuff like that, or you're contributing to decrease of carbon emissions. That's something that you can make it, in a smart contract with another kind of governmental body, and get funded from these values that you're creating, instead of just the percentage of the whole construction cost. And just to kind of share a kind of really interesting project on NFTs really quick. I came across Pack, who probably you've heard of. So he's the pioneer of uh, really building mechanisms in NFT, which is really interesting how we can do that. So because like mainly we are thinking about NFTs as JPEGs and visuals, but the way that he's thinking about NFTs is the function and the mechanism that he's creating and the kind of game theory that he's creating. And recently he kind of released this new collection called Merge. And the whole idea of Merge was that when you acquire a token, the second token that you acquire, it kind of merges with the first token, so you end up with only one token. And with a visual mass, because the whole thing is masses, like tiny dots that add and merge with each other to create like bigger dots. So when you buy two of these tokens, these two will merge into one, so you end up with one token, but your dot will be bigger. So he is creating this kind of game, which at the end, this scarcity of his work will rise, and probably the value of his work will appreciate as well. And he's doing this with kind of different projects, as well as like he did with Lost Poets project, which was really interesting. Which kind of he designed these kind of stages that something happens to your NFT when you have bought it for like after 3 months or 4 months or something. And he's creating these games or these kind of mechanisms that the kind of collectors can gain value from it, and that's something that really interests me as an architect, because we are the people who can think about these stuff, who can really design these kind of systems of changing things and systems of things that are not static. So these were some really kind of quick, interesting projects that I wanted to share. But thanks for these lovely projects that you're sharing, Maya.
Yeah, I think that's three examples are really interesting. I've not heard of PAK before, PAK, right? For anyone that wants
Yeah.
to look him up. That's super interesting. I thought the example of like the NHS, here in the UK, the NHS like paying an architect because you're making people healthier or creating more mentally mental health wise healthier buildings. That's a super interesting concept. Um, or like I can't remember what was your other example. It was like I guess you could have energy companies paying you back, but I guess to push back on the idea of some architects do get paid in equity of the building that they're working on, and so that wouldn't be anything new. But I guess the argument would be that kind of as blockchain technology becomes more and more common, that would be more accessible to do, and you could utilize existing smart contracts and stuff like that to make it happen. Because I think that's definitely, there's nothing new about charging fees on, you get, for example, I think there was this story, I don't know, I actually don't know if it's true, that like, for example, when Bianca did the VM house, part of the fee was that he actually got, an apartment at the top or two apartments at the top or whatever it was. So it's not like that doesn't exist, but how would blockchain make that more accessible? I guess, you could, that equity could be reflected in an NFT or a token of that building or something like that, I guess. But that definitely is what interests me the most, I think, in for architecture.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is that how you can measure things. Like previously, you couldn't really measure the impact you could have. I mean, you
Right.
could, but it would be really difficult. But now, the smart contracts, because they can be so complex, and that's what Dark Matter Lab is suggesting, that you could really narrow down the percentage of that you are creating, for the adjacent properties. So that tiny little percentage that has been created by you specifically can be calculated now with the power of coding
Yeah.
and smart contracts. So that's something to think of.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their website now. I think I've got a darkmatterlabs.org. I've not heard about them before, but this looks super interesting. I've got a lot of studying already. We're like 40 minutes in. I've already got a lot of homework to do after this, after this, which is good. But this actually seems really interesting. Maya, I'm not sure if have you come across these before, or is this kind of stuff you've already been looking into?
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot, Amir, for sharing it. Uh, Actually, I have come across something on similar lines for performance-based smart contract developed by same group from ETH. So what they are doing is they had this code inside the smart contract itself. Let's say you have the contract with the MEP systems and the contractors, where based on your decided building performance parameters, the smart contract will itself trigger the next release of funds. So let's say you decided that the building should perform and the energy consumption should be lesser than 3000 mph or something. And if the smart contract are connected with the IoT device, and after 5 years they have another release of payment, and they monitor the whole building usage, and if it exceeds and if the building is not performing well, they do some deductions right based on the smart contract. So it becomes very interesting when you have this building operations and ops into the smart contract. And also I would like to mention that theoretically it seems easy, but also we need to consider, once we start connecting this real life data into smart contract, that's the weakest link, because it's a centralized entity connecting to the decentralized. So there's a famous oracle problem, where if people manipulate the data before sending it to smart contract, it can't do anything. So there are contracts from Chainlink which are solving this, where this oracle problem can be tackled. But definitely we could also have incentive model, where if people inside the apartment are using less electricity, there should be a built-in smart contract which rewards that behavior. Maybe it's in form reduction in operations bill or something.
Yeah, that's that's kind of would be a unique way of like creating some kind of community driven DAO kind of thing. So are you developing any Archi DAOs right now, and like what is the specific goal of them, or like what do you foresee, um, uh, like what's the kind of initial projects that you're seeing going on in this space?
Yeah, I think, in one line, if I were to see, there is something for everyone in this community, to contribute into Arkidao. It's learning and growing. So we are gonna do one free metaverse architecture blockchain workshop, where we are not only gonna share how to do 3D assets, but scripting the behavior, script connecting to API and making requests, and how we can create dynamic experiences. Because I have visited many metaverse galleries, and if architects are competing with other 3D artists just on asset creation, it could be challenging unless you are in the top 1 or 5%. So we need how we use the architectural knowledge of contextualization, experience creation, and if you know how to embed that in the spaces you are creating in metaverse, I think you could create a lot of value. And getting in touch with the physical digital bridge, is gonna take it to the next level. So we have like clients on crypto voxel. So if any, like I would encourage everyone in this community, if they are interested in the blockchain space, like please join us on Discord, on ArchiDAO, and our Twitter. We have like every Saturday weekly community meetups where we share project updates. And I mentioned about the crypto barista project. The third project, which is super interesting, is so two of our members played a major contribution in uh, Provoke, which is first 3D printed concrete house in Czech Republic, built in 2020. So we are doing real estate tokenization for that launch. And the phase two is like developing a treasure hunt game where we are NFTing like various parts of the house, let's say kitchen, bathroom, and you would, there's a treasure hunt game. And if you find those NFT, discover it, and you'll get like part ownership of the house. And currently you could like do one night booking and stay in that house. So a lot of perks and utilities you will get using that real estate tokenization. So it's cutting edge in first manufacturing, but we are adding another cutting edge blockchain benefits to it.
Super interesting. What? Just to recap, what's the name of where you can join in? You said on Discord, it's ARCHI-TECH.
So on Twitter it's ARCHI underscore DAO DAO. Yeah.
There you go.
And on there you'll have like Miro link and Discord link and all the community meetups updates.
Awesome. And the name of the 3D printing guys, that sounds super interesting. What are they called? If you
PRV. Uh,
sorry,
yeah,
say that again.
I can. It's Provoke. I can maybe share the link with you later in
Sure.
case you wanna. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. Yeah, combine. God, man, there's so many threads to go down. We've got the metaverse, 3D printing, and NFTs, and but I think it's such an exciting time to see all these things kind of converge together. Maybe we'll jump into a little bit about what you think about blockchain and the metaverse, getting into it. But before we do, I know Aman's been had his hand raised and is up on the stage. So Aman, do you want to jump in and add anything at this point, or if you've got any questions?
Hi, thank you for this great presentation and this great chat. I just want to tackle some points. First, there is a Harvard Business Review article, How NFTs Create Value by Steve Kosinski. And there is one thing which is so related to architecture that a musician band now are using it, that's called royalty bands, which is that when you play a music, an NFT music, that song track you play, each time you play, there is a royalty and it directly goes to the creator of that music play. And I think that's something that we could make, as an architect, could think about it, that maybe there is a way that the longer people live in our indoor architecture space that we created, we get more equity out of it. Another thing that I once have, Mayur, I know, idea on it. We are a young startup that's focusing on generative NFTs for Metaverse, mostly based on Decentraland because of their DAO conversion with Blender. And we are thinking to come up with a generative form of platform that people could create housing and then use it on their metaverse as their initial concept. But one thing, there are two concerns that we have. First, most of the smart contracts are based on proof of work algorithm, which is somehow concerning. We are concerned actually about the environmental impact of it. And the other thing is that, how do you see the metaverse as further going on, or just you see it as a trend that came and go? Once again, thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, do you want to take some of those, or we can unpack some of those questions a little bit?
For sure, like I think like those are like very important things, and especially like a proof of work is not sustainable. And uh, I have like moved on to like blockchains which are more sustainable, like Solana, Algorand, and it's also more secure. And there is also
Tezos, right?
Tezos, yeah.
So
There are like
maybe just to pause a second to explain. I'm just assuming there's people in the audience that may not know exactly the story behind this. This is essentially and I think in the architecture world, this was kind of came to light by Chris Preck, that kind of was about to mint some NFTs and worked out that like the environmental impact of minting NFTs using Ethereum, I think he was going to use, was not so great. And this is partly because Ethereum is in proof of work. No, what's the term? Proof of work, and it's not so great sustainability wise. It consumes a lot of energy, but there are other blockchains that are based off of proof of stake, which is much more way less energy intensive, correct, and therefore like a lot more sustainable, right?
correct.
Correct
Yeah,
me
like
if I'm saying anything completely wrong.
yeah. So like there are proof of stake, there are proof of history, like different like there are this blockchain dilemma where like you could only do 2 out of 3 things at a time, like security, speed, and transaction. So like that's why some blockchains like Bitcoin, who are like way more secure, they have like way high transaction speed. But like different blockchains handle it differently. But like as you correctly address, like there are like better sustainable alternatives if you change the way like the consensus algorithm is out there. And to Iman's point, I think one of the areas, like, so we have good developers in our DAO. And one of the thing we are trying to address is like metaverse interoperability, because different metaverse, like if you go to CryptoVoxel, they need .vox model. If you go to Decentraland, I think they need like .fbx or other models. So we are trying to develop a component where whatever model you have, just upload it, will create like 5 or 6 sets of model conversions for you that are compatible with different metaverse. So if you are that NFT or metaverse holder, like we are trying to develop like a smart contract which based on the URL you're making the call, it will automatically understand, oh, it's making call from Decentraland, or it's making call from CryptoVoxel, and it will pull the URL of that model accordingly. So, and one thing which like there's also one interesting development from MIT architects called ARCHI-TECH, which are doing also like blockchain based generative housing. So every person deserves a house on metaverse on that lines. But
Metaverse houses, we're talking virtual houses, not real houses, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And one thing this is my personal opinion. I think we need some contextuality like in that metaverse. Otherwise, it will be like a very crowded and very like different architecture styles being mashed up. And like to create that urban cohesive experience, we might need, when you maintain house, also some like on
So
some modification.
it comes with like some planning rules.
Correct. Yeah. So I got a really good feedback from Andrea from Numina. Like, so there are like this metaverses like Decentraland, and if you go at a random time, most of the assets are empty. And if we can answer the question, why would a grandma or grandpa will go to the metaverse? Like, what's so thing which will get most of the crowd? I think that will help a lot of people getting into that transition. And like we need some on metaverse modification that, okay, you bought that house, but also some GUI or some on metaverse modification. Okay, it's sitting right beside the hotel, so can I modify some entrance or something?
Maybe actually it makes a little bit of maybe Amir's kind of uh, like not question but like comment about how architects instead of you getting paid by percentage of construction or something like that, maybe that translates a little bit better to architecture in the metaverse, right? Let's say someone hires you, Mia, to design some wicked event space in Decentraland, right?
Mhm.
How are you going to get paid for that? Maybe you could get paid in some kind of NFTs, and maybe then you could tune in that maybe there's some kind of reward for the more people that use it. Then there's some kind of kickback for that, whether that's financial or something else. But of course, we did a talk a few weeks ago now on the metaverse, which was easily our most popular talk. I don't know, I think we did it at the time where the term metaverse was at its biggest hype, and we got talking to architects that are working in the metaverse, and of course, cryptocurrencies or NFTs is going to be the financial systems for the metaverse, right? So it makes total sense. So maybe there's something, also on that side of, architects. I think is a great place for architects to now start working. Um, and maybe there's new financial kind of models using blockchain in the metaverse for us to design virtual environments, which will be a completely new what am I trying to say, like a new market for architects to work in.
Can
Definitely.
we can I
Go ahead.
just
Sorry.
um can we like take one step back before diving into this, because this is really interesting. I just want to ask before we dive into architects building in metaverse. I want to ask this question: that do you think, Mayor, that we as architects are going to be? I mean, we're going to design some buildings in metaverse, but is that something that we mainly gonna do, or do you think that we're gonna build systems that people are gonna use these systems to build their customized kind of houses? Because I can see like the metaverse being mm, really really about customization as well, like people having this freedom of building whatever they want. But I can see also fashion industry like now designing things specifically for a metaverse. But I would just ask whether you think architects would just build buildings in metaverse, or maybe we could use knowledge of scripting, the way we kind of use algorithms to kind of build these kind of infrastructure in metaverse that people can actually build with their customized kind of attributes and the ways that they like their homes to be. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So right now, like even the lands in this metaverse are going like 5,000 to 15,000, like base price. So what I think, if this metaverse, there's a lot of traction and a lot of people, there might be two set of clients or categories. Like one would be a set of clients who won't be afford like a custom solution developed by architects or like some designers. So they would go, okay, I just want a house, I want to get things done, I want to organize even, I want to develop my business around it. They might go like, okay, what are some cheap, ready to available 3D models or NFT I can integrate? But there might be like high end brands or companies who want like custom uh, asset creation, which is very complex and have great. They might have like uh, specialist designer or let's say architects who could do that well. So if it goes to that level, but like there's something about like customization where users feel good about it, even if you buy like our apartment, we customize the interior to get our own identity attached to it. So I feel if we have like some on like some generative minting where we take some input from the users at the time of minting, and like, okay, if a user have preference towards a particular architecture style or has particular room layout or room arrangement, we take that input and have a generative configurator and mint that asset. So we're doing like a custom based asset creation where based on the user needs. I think that might solve that problem, but one could also argue about product versus service based model, that Apple has its one product but everyone uses it. Yeah.
Maybe even would architects even be that great as architects in the metaverse? Have we conditioned ourselves to real world parameters like gravity, for example? And maybe, yeah, that's a super interesting question of like, would architects be better at like designing the systems, or like, you know, a more architecture-y example, like a planning, you know, sort of guidelines for, you know, metaverse cities or something like that.
Yeah, that was really interesting answer. And I want to say that maybe one reason that people in the real world come to us as architects to design their houses is that we know the technicality and tectonics behind the buildings and how they are constructed. And we are kind of the kind of people who by law we can design buildings. But in metaverse, there is not really like tectonics of, you know, building buildings. You know, any kid could possibly, you know, who knows Minecraft, can possibly go into metaverse and start building their home and dream home. So I see one reason that we as architects might not be the only people who are building in metaverse is that we no longer have the authority of the kind of over the knowledge of tectonics of building buildings. So it's going to be kind of real freedom of, you know, what you can achieve really. But I really get that point of, you know, there could be different clients and that could be like a very kind of niche, luxurious kind of area that people come and ask us for specific spaces in metaverse. That's actually, yeah, really valid.
Yeah, and one thing is like in one of the metaverse, like people bought land and they just built boxes, and it totally like ruined the whole like experience of the space. So I see we might play a role uh, to in this metaverse design at the beginning, where if they are like creating a whole new urban plot, what are some rules or like something like based on zoning or spatial experience they need our help, that said the whole place creation or location identity doesn't get ruined. But as architects, I think we might struggle a bit because we tend to have our biasness from physical world into metaverse, and we need to remove some of that biasness but also translate some of the value creation we have in this world.
Yeah.
Can I add some points? What do you think about maybe some kind of urban design? If you could teleport from one point of metaverse to another point of metaverse, in my view, there are no means to parcels, streets, or any sort of urban infrastructure that may conflict with us or set a rule.
It'd just be a bunch of floating things, and you just teleport from one to the other. But yeah, no, that's a great point. I know a lot of people are talking about designing like NFT galleries and stuff like that, and you know, some people spoke to me about it. It's like, oh man, the museum could look really crazy, and you could have different rooms. I was like, why would you even have a building like inside the metaverse? It does take a minute to kind of separate your mind from, you know, your traditional architecture, gravity, finance decisions
Yeah.
to the metaverse. But actually, I want to maybe teleport out of the metaverse back into real world, because I don't want the conversation to get too. we did a massive talk on the metaverse, so I don't want to get too distracted by the metaverse, although it's becoming more and more interlinked with, blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrencies. So it's hard to kind of separate one from another. But maybe just to kind of like, because I'm hoping, a lot of people that may, listen to this later on and stuff like that are kind of maybe coming at it from a new angle, you know, a new thing and just understanding what it is. So maybe to backtrack, like as the average Joe Blogs architect, who, whether they are a single practitioner, they work for a firm, they have a small firm or even a huge architecture firm, what do we see as the low-hanging fruits for architects to start taking advantage or understanding blockchain technologies? For example, is is selling NFTs of work, a low-hanging fruit for architecture firms, or is it going to be way more interesting? Do we use blockchain as a way to get into the metaverse? Do we see it as a way to raise capital for building stuff? What do you see as kind of like the low hanging fruits for architects to start taking advantage of this technology?
Yeah, low hanging fruit is to join ArchiTech. Sorry, like we have a workshop, but I think
And
the
learn
first
more at
thing,
ARCHI-TECH.
yep, we'll do the onboarding. I think the low hanging fruit is first building community and joining Discord channels of various metaverses and understand what's going on. Because like you might come across buildings who are NFT and you say, I could design 10 times better. But when you mint it, no one will buy, or like it's not going as per your expectation. It's not that NFT itself has like some value, but the community which makes that NFT and builds that NFT is what makes the inherent value, which takes initiatives, which does a lot of other things outside of that NFT creation. So knowing and like not understanding the mechanics, because I have seen a lot of artists getting depressed or like not getting out of NFT world because they tried 10 different NFTs but didn't work out. So it's a long game, and you might require like some time commitment, community building to have that first success. But also, I think low hanging fruits would be just getting out and doing the first NFT, getting out and build a first metaverse asset. Like learning that process itself is a discovery that what are the opportunities which you people have not yet leveraged in that metaverse, and you could provide additional value. So
I think,
so
yeah, that's. I think those are two great examples. Even though the metaverse is not strictly blockchain, but um, yeah, understanding what an NFT is, how to mint it, and downloading and getting into a metaverse, understanding the process to I don't know, bring a model into metaverse or something like that. So that being said, what if you're going to NFT or sorry, mint an NFT? What do you have any? Have you done that yourself? Do you have any platforms that you recommend? If you wanted a more sustainable option, what platform? I was just listening to your own podcast with Lewis. Was his name?
yeah,
Um,
that's
and I couldn't quite see. I think I found it, but there was he was on Hen 101 was where he was selling his NFTs that was based off Tezos. Is that correct?
yep.
So yeah,
So
well, if I want an NFT, let me say I'm going to NFT an ArchiTech network, one of our little animations. Where should I go tomorrow?
yeah, so I think Louis, I'm bad at pronouncing. Like it's Hakun, HICETNUNC, Hikuntat, which is on Tezos,
Oh yeah.
which is yeah. So I must admit, like, so there are two types of NFT collect. So one platforms. One is like curatorial platforms, for
Mm-hmm.
example, art blogs or something on Foundation, where even if you want to get started, you need to be on that curatorial artist list to get minted. And
Right.
other is open platform where anyone can mint and do. So depending on the blockchain, even OpenSea is very easy where you can just upload your image. It can do and select the chain and you can do minting without getting into like smart contract and other coding stuff, but also like Econtact and some like blockchain on Solana. So I'm personally uh, like okay, I don't want to have any biasness. Like uh, select a chain either on if you are very into like the developments on Ethereum, select a layer 2 solution like blockchain Polygon or other which is more sustainable and lesser transaction cost. Because if you do Ethereum, depending on the time and gas fees, you might be paying 50 to 100 or $200. But if you select chain on Solana, it might be like 5 cents to do your first NFT. So
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
yeah.
I'm gonna look into that myself. I was thinking of doing a video of how to create an NFT, so I'll be bugging you when I do.
Yeah. For
uh,
sure.
but maybe before we continue with this, I know Richa has come up to the stage. Good to see you, Richa, as always. Is there anything you want to add or jump into the conversation?
Yeah, I was up. Hi everyone. So I was like, want to talk a point on metaverse where we were talking how architects can play a role. So I think that when we talk about metaverse, the credibility that architects have in the real world can help us along in the metaverse. And so if we develop something like as we had a talk with Nicole last time, and she was mentioning how metaverse is evolving and how she's being participated in n number of events, and she feels good about it. So like to feel good in the metaverse, it's always okay to be surreal but also be very physically like practical, the way we have in our own world, so that there are some roots and we are grounded, and through that ground architects have a good credibility. And we have done courses, we have studied like 5 years and our experience, so that has always been surreal experiences that we have always tried to capture in our drawings and designs. So I think that can help us a lot when we design in metaverse, and architects can be a really good part of that journey.
For sure. Yeah. No, like I'm not saying architects would be bad. For sure. Like in theory, we're great at making spaces and experiences and things like that, which would translate really well to the metaverse. And I think you might see, like there's a lot of frustrated architects that design like really extravagant stuff, and it would just never get built because it's just either just it's not impossible, it's just very very expensive, or some of it is physically impossible to actually build. but people find it really interesting, and so I guess there is a generation of like Instagram architects where their
Yeah.
work is super interesting, people love it, it kind of goes viral, but you couldn't build it, or it would be like ridiculously expensive to build it. But now in the metaverse, you can actually, it's not an image on Instagram or something that you just see in a, I don't know, magazine or something like that. You could actually go and,
Feel that.
experience it in the metaverse. So I think there would be, like a lot of, let's say, frustrated architects that are frustrating with the constraints of the real world and don't really have an outlet apart from let's say Instagram or kind of social media to express their work. Now it's a place for people to actually experience it and maybe somehow pay for it, or pay people to build this stuff. So that could be really interesting to see that. Like I think there'll be a ton of architects that will do really well in it. There'll also be a ton of architects that will just be like, you know, I'm happy building with bricks and cement, and it doesn't translate. So I think some will be great, some will be not so great. So, but I think it'd be a really interesting uh, part of this kind of metaverse blockchain era,
Mm.
the blockaverse era. Well, should we
Yeah.
name it that? But
Also.
Yeah, no, go on, go on.
So also Olia was like asking, like we had Arkid out trying to have these governance models like smart contracts and stuff. What do you think, like as per your experience, and also Faisal and anybody else in the call want to add on, like what do you think, like the current governance model or the organization model changes to something or evolve to something like blockchain based model? So what are your point and thought, like can it be a possibility?
I mean, like the idea of the barista cafe, where like, businesses are, completely democratic, and I think is super interesting. Like I like the idea of it. My question is like, would it actually work in in reality? Like, I really want it to work, but I'm just thinking, you know, yeah, I'm excited about. I could really see how it could be a way to create like a, I'm thinking like a sustainable eco village, right? And you could crowdfund the building of it. You could then govern like how it's run, how it's managed. Like you could even, design in food production, energy production, and all this kind of stuff. And then, it's run through this ARCHI-DAO, governance system. But you know, the how does the human aspect, like, then you have, what if some asshole buys like 51% of the homes there, and that now they control the governments, and like, I don't know. Yeah, the realities of it, I think, would be super interesting to see how it pans out. But the idealist in me is super excited by it for sure.
Yeah, so lately I've been to this Athens DAO, and there they were talking about this, that if an investment or something has to be made, it has to be in the limit of 1 to 5 ETH. It should not
Mm,
exceed that, because
right.
obviously if someone buys like for 20 ETH, then their voting power will be tremendous, and that can't be like, no one can fight that. So we can have some sort of governance model in such a way that is placed
Yeah.
to have certain limits of ETH and
Yeah, I guess
whatnot.
that there would be, so yeah, I guess there'd be a really easy ways, I guess, so you don't have that 51% attack and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's super exciting. I would love to see a, like, and maybe there's a way in the metaverse you kind of test these theories out with, you know, a fake. There's no like real money behind it, and see if it actually works. But then how would it translate to the real world? But yeah, I think it's super exciting. I think it could be, if you could get it to work, it would be, revolutionary way of. I mean, I guess you'd be kind of going back in time to the. Again, I'm thinking of this like eco village scenario here, but like
Mhm.
you're almost going all the way back to like olden times, where you would have an actual village where the local one person is making, one family is responsible for farming, and another family goes out fishing, and the other family, you know it protects and fights for the village and stuff like that. I'm just thinking of like, you go kind of full circle. Would this technology kind of bring you back to that scenario with a more kind of, I don't know, eco-based way of living? I don't know. I'm going off. I'm just shooting out ideas here, but I think it's super interesting. Um, I'm
I want to
definitely going to
project one last
follow.
question from my. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'm
sorry to
definitely
cut.
going to follow the coffee shop thing and see like how that actually pans out.
You could also join Arkidao to contribute in that space.
Yeah, please join in Akidao.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. Do you guys have like a? How do you guys actually meet? Is it on Clubhouse or something else? Or
So we are doing like a live stream on YouTube, Twitter, like using
uh,
Restream. So yeah.
okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
Saturday you can tune in for that.
All right. Yeah, yeah. If you guys message me the deets, I'll join in for sure.
Perfect. And I want to like project one more question, even to Mayur, you also, like what do you guys think that one need of introducing the system, like one highest, like super priority need so that we actually introduce the system apart from being interesting and exciting. But that particular need I want to actually have into words, if my question was
Sorry, can you
depicted right.
repeat that for a second? I dropped out for a second.
So I meant like, what is that particular one need for that, so that we change a governance model that like right now we have. It is exciting, it is interesting and decentralized, but what can be the current scenario that is so wrong that we have to delve into this decentralized format?
Good
I have
question.
a, I have a,
Thank you.
I have an addition to that. So I've kind of, and this is super interesting, by the way, Mayor and Risha. I love the idea. Um, so recently I've been thinking about, the hesitancy from some people that don't want to, or that don't like cryptocurrency, right? And then, the people that do like crypto. And usually it's about the decentralization and how you can kind of step away from a centralized government that, has power over people. And I was kind of thinking that perhaps crypto could actually be the easiest way for governments to control people and to track people, because when you have like a monetary system with physical cash, right? It's very hard to track the transaction of that cash. When you have a crypto system, everything from the mining to the very latest transaction is tracked. And then I started thinking maybe perhaps the way to solve that problem is if there was a decentralized cryptocurrency or token that wasn't on a public ledger, that perhaps maybe the government didn't have access to, all the information on the blockchain. I'm not sure. Maybe there's an answer to this. It just kind of came to my mind, and maybe you guys have thought about this already.
A decentralized, undecentralized, decentralized behind closed doors.
I haven't thought this all the way through, but
no, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, I have no idea, but it's interesting to think about it, I guess. I mean, I guess it's a counterpoint to argument is, would it be any different? Because, let's take that example of a government, it's not able to track cash. Yes, cash, but how many people are paying for stuff with cash these days? Very little. And so, I guess your banks track everything that all your payments, and that's kept behind closed doors through the banks. I don't know if the government, have access to our bank accounts. I hope not, but I'm sure they do in some way. So I guess you're saying is it would kind of be the same as a digital bank, no?
yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the challenge, right?
But it's
I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
but
no.
I wanted to pose it to Mayor and Richard, because this might be something that they could solve, right? Because Richard was looking for a sort of problem and solution. And perhaps if you're able to solve that problem, that might be the last problem with crypto in terms of it being, extremely successful at becoming completely decentralized. So, yeah, I honestly don't have the answer. I think it's
I think it's interesting to pose these questions.
I think like things are getting like being developed in that space. Like Miami city governor is very proactive in that development space. But I want to address, like, we know this blockchain has the whole transaction history, but it's difficult to get the whole transaction history because the data is stored in various nodes. But like there are like new protocols like graph protocols who are making easy to make the whole historic timeline access. But there are other alternatives, like if a particular company is not very well comfortable for decentralization, there are like private blockchains they could also develop if they just want to take the benefit of blockchain in their integration. But like coming to Richard's point, I think the number one reason I feel like I'm more bullish on the DAO in our industry, because personally, if a junior architect is grinding late night, and if the junior architect is not able to present in client meetings, if that architect is not able to take initiatives because of the bureaucracy, I think the DAO completely addresses that problem and provides a whole transparent bottom up approach rather than like top down we have in our industry. And maybe if they are working like 60 hours instead of 40 hours, like we document that. And even in ArchiDAO, we are doing like task based rewards and efforts based rewards. So whatever amount of work you do, you deserve that. So it's kind of a new approach where everyone like has a voice, everyone has a governance, they can do proposals, and it's you can vote.
You're suggesting like a DAO, what am I trying to say? Like a DAO business model for an architecture firm. So then, like you have a say within the company, and there's a like a one-to-one um, reward on your input and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're kind of suggesting?
Yeah, like those are some of the benefits, like with the DAO mechanism, and
Yeah.
we could avoid all this in the current areas of improvements in architecture practices. I think like DAO provides a lot of progress or improvements in that direction.
And how we will track the quality, Mayur?
So that's where the community governments votes. Like if there are 3 design proposals and the community identifies and votes where, oh, this is a good design, this is not so good. Like let's decide the reward and acceptance based on it. So there's no central entity.
Yeah. That would, yeah. If you're designing with a DAO, that could be a real pain, because then if like you can move forward to the next stage until 1,000 people have all liked it and everyone has a say. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing here, but anyway, I
It
don't want
could.
to get too into the weeds of a specific example, but maybe Richard, to try and broadly answer your question, I think the thing that would trigger us using a more governance-based system would be that, I guess, the way that they currently works does not work that well. Let's take building homes, for example. I'm sticking with my eco blockchain village thing, uh, my DAO village.
Yeah.
Like, you know, homes are becoming super expensive. They're made for profit by very few people. You know, the end product is not really that high quality. It's like what's the lowest quality materials we can create the most basic product and sell it for the most amount of money. And I guess it's getting to a point where for many of us, buying a home is like out of reach, and so the current way of doing these things is failing us. And something like a DAO eco village, maybe a new alternative that produces a better quality, that's better for you to afford, is better for you to live in, it's healthier for you to live in, and it's also better for the environment. Yeah, just an example, I guess. Current systems are not working so well for us for some things. It's hard to like, I think I have to give it some kind of example to just spitball an idea, but or spitball a response. But yeah, in that example of my little eco village thing, that would be the catalyst for trying this or accepting this or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, we've kind of touched on a ton of different things. Mayur, I don't know if you want to bring up anything else, but maybe this might be a good point to end the podcast. What do you think? Do you think we want to touch on anything else, or how can people join in on your ArchiDAO? Where can they get in touch with you? Obviously, everyone in the crowd can go on Mayur's page and follow his Instagram or Twitter account. I'm not sure which one you prefer to use, but yeah, how can people join in on your ArchiDAO?
Yeah. So I would recommend like following our Twitter account, Archie, ARCHI _ DAO, and our Saturday meetups and Discord. And this is in a beginning stage. We all can build this and showcase the world what the future of architecture looks like, and we have opportunities for everyone to grow in this. If we are doing it in clusters, it might take the time, but if we are doing it together, I know like all of us are very talented, and that collective intelligence can make a big difference in this world.
That's awesome. I'll definitely look into it and join. But I think, yeah, maybe this is a good place to spot, because I feel like this talk has just been, I feel like there's, oh, there we go. He shared it. So follow them on Twitter and come and join the Archi DAO and, discuss these futures in more depth. But I think this talk has been super interesting. Like, I feel like we've just been spitballing what ifs and how does this work, and I feel like I've got a lot of new threads to follow. So I think this only sets us up for another blockchain talk down the line, a future one on Metaverse and NFTs and blockchain. I think it's a really interesting space. I'm super excited about, and it's definitely on my New Year's list to get into, like to create an NFT and also create something in the metaverse. I think that might be 2 New Year's goals for next year.
Yeah, and if you want to do generative NFT, we could start a thread in Akida.
There you go. To generate NFTs. There you go. No, I think that's super interesting. And I think the best snippet that's come out of this is, for your average architect to look into NFTs, maybe even experiment with making an NFT, preferably utilizing a sustainable platform, and go and explore the metaverse. Go and explore it. Go and understand what it's about, and how do you actually start to build it in the metaverse. I think those are 2 super interesting things that all architects could put on their New Year's goal for
Yep.
what year are we in? 2022.
The time is now.
The
Like
time
it
is
just
now. There you go.
yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be the quote from this. Mayur Mistry. The time is now. Get into the metaverse. Awesome.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome, guys. Thank you, Mayur, for joining. So many threads to follow, so many great tips of stuff going on. I'm super excited to follow the crypto baristas. Is that what they're called? The crypto baristas? That'll be a cool name. They should call themselves that.
Yeah.
And thanks for everyone that's come up on stage to help us out with what the hell this blockchain thing is all about, and how, as architects, we could utilize it. Otherwise, we'll probably see you early next year. I don't know what the talk's going to be about, but we'll be there. Meantime, we're working hard on catching up on some content for YouTube. So we'll be posting stuff soon. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next Sunday. Oh, we'll see you next year.
Thank you for joining, listening, and hosting. Like it was a great experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.